Welcome back, rugby fans, to another great episode here on the Rugby Rant podcast show, where we put ourselves and our guests to the test in this rugby debate format where the guests will battle it out against one another as they do each and every week for top honors here on the Rugby Rant. Today, we have joining us is Cam and Walker Tice from the Rugby Index. And then we have, of course, look at that. I love that. There we go. In unison, nearly. The rehearsals went badly. We didn't get it timed right. It's not a great start, more so to the point, I wanted to be able to remind everybody that they're going to be battling Scott Ferrara, the big guy, in the absence of Rob Hammerschmidt, who's down with his family in Florida enjoying some sunshine and some cocktails. But more importantly, how does it all work? Well, I wanted to be able to remind our viewers at home, once again, in this rant format, that each of our participants have 2 minutes to be able to rant the topic at hand. Now, on this occasion, we in fact will do it in 3 parts to discuss the previous weekend's semifinal playoff matchups between Utah, LA, and then, of course, Atlanta, and then Rooney. That matchup weekend being most important to define who has made it through to the finals. So each of the gentlemen on screen will be talking about these matchups individually in each of their rants. First up, we'll be talking about the first matchup, which was then Rooney versus ATL at home for ATL, the Rattlers at the Snake Pit in Life University, where the final scoreline, quite slim, a great defensive battle, not particularly exciting to watch, some fans might say, unless it was a drinking game counting the handling errors.
But you know, Ty, before we move forward, we got to talk about some of the ATL drip you're wearing because we get all this stuff from shop.com, powered by the Rugby Shop, and right now they have a 50% off sale going on at shop.com that you don't want to miss. You know, if you were waiting to get stuff, if your wife or your husband or your significant other was jumping on you about buying all this MLR gear like my wife does for me, this is the time to get it, because then you could say, well, honey, I only spent $50 and I got 4 items instead of spending $50 and getting 2. Come on. It's all about quantity. But you can go to shopmlr.com, powered by the Rugby Shop, for all your MLR gear. They just got the new LA kits in, and they're really hot. I really love the LA colors, and check them out. Again, 50% off.
Well, that LA one I've got lucky over here. Yeah. And Scott, to frame it better, just for a little bit of advice for the missus, it's not I spent 50, I saved 50.
There you go. Perfect.
But yeah, I mean, if there was a good time to be able to go and grab that gear, it really is right now at the end of year sale up to 50% off. Oh, and by the way, for those of you that have been participating in the Super Brew contest and have been winning vouchers all the way through, again, brought to you by the guys at the Rugby Shop. $25 for a Shop MLR voucher every week for the person who wins the round. And then we've got those bigger ones where it's $150, $100, and $50 for those final 3, which we'll be announcing at the end. But my point is, how amazing is this? So I had to check, and I checked with Ed at the Rugby Shop. So if somebody can find the gear they like, 50% off, plus they have a voucher, they could use it in conjunction with that. So you might be getting some really cool gear for next to nothing, right? But let's dive into the real reason we're here is to talk once again about rugby. So reintroducing the team, we got Walker in the bottom right-hand corner. He's going to be the one to be able to start our rant off, talking about that first recap game matchup between Rooney and ATL at home for Rugby Atlanta. And the final scoreline there was, of course, 10-9 in favor of Atlanta and pushing them through to the championship game. Walker, take us out. You are the man to start us off.
Thank you, Ty. Where to start unpacking? I mean, the short and skinny of it is that it was a pretty ugly game. There wasn't a whole lot of dynamic play. Both backlines seemed very flat throughout the entire play. We joked about it before we came on air, but the amount of knock-ons and handling errors were egregious. The volume of them was very, very surprising for any MLR team, let alone the 2 teams that have made it into the semifinal. That being said, I do think that there were high points. I think ATL, while they managed to kick away possession several times inside Rooney's first inside their 40 the first half. They managed to make some adjustments and really leverage their maul on the lineouts a couple of times, had some really good rolling mauls, and really put them in position for their one and only try. Rooney, on the other hand, missing a couple of pieces, not to make excuses, but I think Hollingshead especially makes a difference in that game. You can bring Harry Bennett off the bench, and I think it makes a difference. That being said, only 3 penalty kicks. You've got to be more dynamic. And they had a few opportunities. They started out extremely slow. I think the first 15 minutes were spent with ATL ball in hand and played in Rooney's half. So you're not going to be, you're not scoring 60, 70 meter tries at this juncture in the season. It's just tough. And beyond the handling errors, both teams did have pretty decent defense. So you combine the two, and it's a pretty, I don't want to use the word apathetic, but it's a pretty monotonous kind of back and forth in the middle part of the field, and not a whole lot of scoring going on.
Yeah, talking about the defense, so here you've got teams that have traditionally done well on defense. In fact, I think that by the end of the regular season, ATL was third best on defense, and I think Giltini's were ahead of them in second place, Austin Gilgroni's being first, just on points conceded. In fact, I wrote down those points, but they were pretty close. But more to your point, though, yes, it's kind of uncharacteristic to be able to see a game so close in comparison to what we have seen from the MLR season, which has arguably been one of those leagues that people have criticized it for being more about the offense than the defense. But it certainly has made for more exciting matchups in the past. And looking at it in comparison to this one, it wasn't nearly as exciting because it was a much tighter affair. And it wasn't quite clinical in comparison to what we have seen in the past. So I certainly agree with you there. Let's hand it over to Cam to see what he thinks.
Yeah, sort of a lot of the same. I was very hopeful that Andy Ellis, after having a few matches back, would be more of a contributor. While he played a pretty steady game, I don't know that he set himself out as a difference maker. I will give credit to Harry Bennett. With Dan Hollingshead been out close to the last second half of the season, he's really stepped up, and I thought he was the one focal point that they could hang their hat on for New York with his penalty kicks, and did have some nice plays distributing the ball. Defensively, New York, held up to their MO of the season with some staunch defense. I thought they really did a good job slowing down the quick pace of Atlanta, although I was hopeful they would have more of a presence in the breakdown. I don't think they really had too many fights for the ball in a turnover battle, but they really turned the match into what they wanted to play, which is, grind it out, low scoring, and, maybe the last possession wins. Unfortunately, it wasn't their last possession. Right. Offensively for Atlanta, I was very surprised. I thought with the counterattacks and the explosiveness that they brought, I thought they would really take it to Rooney. I didn't think this one was going to be all that close. And, I guess credit more to Rooney, but I was very surprised by Batista Escura starting at 10. I thought they would start Carlsay. I don't know if he got an injury. I might have missed that, but very surprised they didn't even have him in the 23. On top of that, in the second half, I was kind of disappointed with the way they played from their lineouts. I think if they're not the top scoring team from the lineout, they're number 2. I thought they would be, rolling right in against New York, and on multiple occasions they were stopped and were blocked from their bread and butter.
So it helps if I unmute myself. Let's rewind a little bit. So one of the things you spoke about there is the penalties. Okay, so yes, Harry Bennett stepped in the absence of Hollinshead, who has been tremendous, but also a little inconsistent with some of the penalty kicks or conversions there. This seemed to be a bit of a strength in their format now. Yes, it's not exactly exciting rugby, but it still put them ahead. So it doesn't have to be pretty. It just needs to be able to get you ahead. But like you said, they had kind of the advantage, certainly in scoreline, until the latter part of the matchup. But they weren't physical enough at the breakdown areas. They weren't competing at the right opportunity. I felt as if when they did get the ball in hand, they were almost losing ground and they were scrambling for the passes, and it was a loose game as a result. Now, you could argue the same for Atlanta, but it just seems like for me, it was a far looser and less cohesive attack than I had ever seen from Rooney, who typically has done well in closer matchups. They were the first to be able to take down LA. I think it was a 2-point win, right, Scott? So, with that in mind, let's actually hand it over to Scott to see what Mr. Rooster Booster Rooney Empire person has to say here.
Yeah, so the match against LA was a 2-point win. Let's get hot, baby. And I got to be honest, I feel like I got to cut a promo with these two guys. It's like a 2-on-1 in the old school WWF. But, I think it's Cam really, it's funny because Cam kind of hit it on the head as far as ATL and their lineouts and their rolling maul. And to be honest, in the second half, the first half right at the end, they had the opportunity to roll it in, and Samu Tawake, being a one-man wrecking crew, swam through the entire maul, grabbed the ball carrier and threw him out of bounds with one hand. And that's saying something where, in that maul, I think they had a 1 or 2 man advantage at the time. And you had one player swim right through it and throw the guy out of bounds with one hand. And to me, I didn't feel like ATL played to win the match, in my opinion. Rooney was playing to win, but every time they were on offense and moved the ball, either penalty or they knocked it on. Like their offense didn't seem dynamic because they were shooting themselves in the foot by losing the possession on it. ATL, on the other hand, was running, their backline plays, and Rooney just kind of sussed it out. They didn't let any of those switches or those skip passes and those dummies. They just kind of let them work out, and everybody had their lane and they had their player, and that was it. And I felt like ATL was telegraphing their plays from the last 3 matches because it seemed like Rooney was right there to stop them the entire time. Rooney, on the other hand, again, getting killed in the scrum. James Rochford being injured from being hit illegally like 3 or 4 matches ago. He still wasn't good enough to come in and start, which I think is a killer for Rooney because he's their best scrummager. He was coming in off the bench and just giving 20 minutes. I think Nick Savetta, Nate Brinkley, and Hanko, they seemed tired this match versus last match against the Gold, where there was, a big hubbub about making the playoffs. They played great. This match, like Walker mentioned, in the breakdown, they didn't really do anything. Again, on the ATL side, their defense was good, but I think Rooney was just shooting themselves in the foot more than anything as they were going along. Because as soon as Rooney got into that Atlanta half of the field, knock on, or some ridiculous penalty that's called, and it's penalties are penalties. You have to play above it. And then what we didn't talk about was that try that was taken away from Rooney. So I know I might be going over my 2 minutes explaining this, but I got some knowledge going after, so maybe Ty will give me some leeway. Speaking to an official after the match, on the inside of the play, you'll see Will Leonard pointing to the official Anselmi, saying the ball's down there. So what Anselmi, where the ball wasn't up past the try line. There was a little yellow line before it, so the back end of the ball was downed on the yellow line. So that's why Anselmi went to the AR. And according to the AR, the front half of the ball, when it crossed, was being held up. So that's why they didn't call it a try. On television, you couldn't see that, and you didn't really hear the interaction between Anselmi and the AR. So you didn't get anything from them or the commentators about what actually that call was. But according to officials, that's what that call was.
Right. And that's some interesting more insight into an important moment, right? Some of the other important moments to be able to take note of, obviously, we haven't addressed that last 10-minute cycle at the end there was in favor of ATL. I think they put down the try at about the 73rd or 74th minute. At that time, there were probably 10 phases about less than a meter out. So you have to be able to give credit to them because at that point, when you're so close, there's such an incredible temptation to be able to get that extra inch, to be able to make that movement that could put you at risk of a double movement. But, you're all just throwing bodies on the line. So both ways, it's good defense in a sense, although there was an advantage on the play. But ATL just kept pounding away at that wall, moving closer, edging closer and closer towards the posts to give them a better angle. And yes, it came through. But until that moment, they were scrounging. They were let in with about 3 to 5 minutes of pretty good play at the end. But credit to them, they stuck it out. But until then, I think it was 3-10. So it looked like it was at that point Rooney's game to lose.
Well, and also Atlanta was up by a man at that point because Quinn Nwadi face tapped for a yellow card, and any type of head contact is a yellow card. But you could apparently dump tackle Andy Ellis onto his head, and it's only a penalty. And the reason I bring that up is because in the previous match against ATL at home, that same player hit Andy Ellis the same way, and Andy Ellis wasn't penalized or carded in the first match, and Andy Ellis missed 5 matches because of that. So I'm starting to wonder, when's the disciplinary committee going to meet for this particular ATL player headhunting guys like Andy Ellis?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. The only time we'll be able to tell and see what happens there. Perhaps it will just move on because the focus is turning towards the championship final, of course. But what we'd like to be able to do before we head out of this segment here, go once around the table. I'd like you to be able to give me a final score out of 10 for the performance of both sides. Your choice who you want to be able to give a score to first, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. Walker, what is your thoughts?
I mean, I don't want to be too malicious here because it was a pretty ugly game. I would give Rugby ATL, we'll call it a 6.8, and we'll give Rooney maybe a 6.1. Maybe I'm being critical here, but there wasn't a lot of dynamic play. Credit to ATL to find a way to make it win, and to find a win. That's the sign of great teams, that you just find a way, and especially when it's the 11th hour, the 74th minute, whatever it was. I struggle to give them anything higher than that. I really do.
Yeah. Well, I think that's reasonable considering. I mean, it wasn't a flattering scoreline for either side. It wasn't particularly great rugby. And when you're looking back over the season that they've already had and you're comparing it against themselves, and it's not the rugby we come to expect from either side. Let's hand it over to Cam and see your thoughts.
Maybe I'm just a little more generous. Maybe I'm just a softie between us. But I thought, I would give ATL probably a 7.2, 7.3. They played a quality match. There were a lot of mistakes, but at the end of the day, you got the win, and that's all that matters once it hits 80. I don't think Rooney played offensively. It was rough. That was pretty difficult to watch at times.
Disjointed for sure.
But defensively, they played their game. They slowed it down. They definitely frustrated Atlanta at times. And so I'd give them a 7.0. I don't think it was that poor of a game. I think, making it a little messy and making it a little ugly defensively, at least, is their game.
Right. And, something that I wanted to also bring attention, I'm sure everybody knows it, but it might be worth mentioning, ATL probably had a little bit of a psychological disadvantage having lost the 2 previous matches to Rooney going into this. So, I don't know how much of a factor that plays. But it was always going to be a tight matchup, I think, as a result, because, it was going to keep it a much tighter game. I don't think they would have tried too many tricks or been too flamboyant with the ball in any case, because, as they say, defense wins championships, right? So let's hand it over to Scott and hear his final thoughts on this matchup.
Well, the first thing I want to say my final thought is, for all the fans out there complaining that, there's too much scoring, there's no defense, this looks like rugby league, and then you complain and bitch that we had a defensive stand in the semifinal. That was a 1-point victory. I felt exciting, yeah. Walker and Cam are like, It was all right. I was as a fan of Rooney, I was off my seat. I felt I had the same emotions that I had in the 2019 semifinal when San Diego won at the death, because it was that tight. And that's what you want out of a semifinal. Yes, I understand there wasn't scoring, but guess what? There's been scoring all season. But beyond that, I think I would give ATL a 7 because they won the match. I'd give Rooney a 6 because they lost the match. And those two combinations are what got you that 10-9 scoreline and Atlanta moving on. Listen, if you play mistake free like Rooney should have, I believe they would have won the match, but they didn't. And that's how you lose it.
Well, you know, that's kind of my sentiment, though, is that certainly by that last 10 minutes, it feels like it was Rooney's game to lose. And unfortunately, things kind of got a little disjointed. You know, a couple of key moments didn't go in their favor with the yellow card, but the momentum definitely had shifted somewhere in that latter part of the game. And as a result, credit to Atlanta, who pulled off the win. Doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you do it right. And that leaves us with our final thoughts here on that first semi-final playoff matchup, the home for Atlanta at Light University, where they took the win 10-9 against Rooney. We'll be back in just a moment as we take a moment to be able to share some thoughts from one of our sponsors. So we'll hand it over to Scott Ferrara.
Okay.
So hold on. I just want to make a note on the time.
Yeah. What is my fucking thing? This is gonna suck. Okay, hold on. All right. Tighthead Brewing Company is Chicago's premier location to watch rugby and enjoy quality ales and lagers for all seasons. Located in Mundelein, Illinois, the heart of Lake County, owner Bruce Durr and the Tighthead staff will ensure that you're kept well hydrated so you don't miss a single scrum. In Tighthead's tap room, they have it's like a familiar rugby clubhouse in which family and friends can meet, socialize, and enjoy the game we all love. You can join them down at Tighthead Brewery this Sunday for the MLR Championship, baby. 3 p.m. Central Time. Check out Brewster and the Tighthead staff. It's going to be a great match. We're going to talk about it soon, but I'm just in my head. I'm really excited for this final. Hey, Chicago, when you want rugby, Tighthead Brewing Company will satisfy your thirst. Tighthead, it's worth more than a try. I think I do it better than Rob. He can go fuck himself.
Doesn't matter what we think.
Well,
that's
nice. Like a couple of seconds there for an easy cut.
Come on, I'm smart. I know my production. I don't fuck around. But yeah, no, but so that was the other thing. The chance is stopped on Nick Civetta nowhere near the mall, and that's his fucking teammate. I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
I think he was
thinking that's his teammate, man. It's a different game, different prize.
The mall, like when you see the back end of it, the mall's going left and Nick Civetta is to the right of the screen, and you see his like the angle he takes to step at is not the angle that you're pushing the mall towards. So like it was obvious, and even Anselmi was like right there looking at him doing it. So that's what I thought was funny.
There was no deception in it. It was like, for what? He's rolling out of the mall like it is unaffected. Just keep going, dude. And they managed to win anyway. But
no, I know it was funny because what if you remember, nobody could figure out what the fuck they were looking at. Yeah. And then finally the TMO, the last shot was from the back, and you clearly see him stomping on Civetta. I'm like, well, I mean, that's just fucking plain as day.
All right, let's jump into the next one, guys.
Sorry, I just thought it was really funny.
I think, and you guys were talking about the turnovers. I think there were, I counted, I thought there were 15 turnovers in the first half.
Yeah.
So I looked at it, and about 3 minutes before the end of the half, it was 9-8 on that. So it was 17, man. Yeah. So you're looking at, I mean, that's like, if it's the whole game, it's still not great, It's just,
right.
Yeah.
If you have 17 handling errors or turnovers in a game, it's like, that's a pretty sloppy game.
Yeah.
Let alone in the first half. And to be fair, I thought the second half cleaned up a little bit. But
I think when the sun went down, I think that change from the sun going into night in that end of the first half is what made the ball really slippery. And I think you saw that in the last 20 minutes. And then maybe the first 10 minutes of the second half. And then after that, it kind of, people were retaining the ball more. And I think it's just because you were now in that nighttime, so you didn't have that dewy ball, you know.
Okay, let's jump into so it's the next piece. LA versus Utah at the Coliseum. Final scoreline 17-13. I'm going to frame the conversation that way. Scott, we're going to start this round with you. So that means after Walker, it'll come back to me. I'll just try to go piece it together, and we'll do a score for each of you, what your final thoughts are there. And then we will do a Can I Brands piece, which we'll just do a conversational. I don't have a piece, but I just say I'll just launch into it. Scott, you can jump in with what product you tried. I'll be talking about this Can I Boost? Jesus, I got to get used to saying that. Can I Boost? Okay, all right.
I was just saying, blame it on the accent.
Yeah. What accent? I have an accent? You guys just sound weird to me. All right, let's go. And welcome back, rugby fans. Again, this is the Rugby Debate Show. We put ourselves and our guests to the test to battle it out against each other for top honors each and every week. And our competitors here today, as you know from the first round, we give a quick reintroduction. We got Walker and Cam Tice battling it out against our regular Scott Ferrara, the big guy, in the absence of Rob Hammerschmidt. My name is Ty Braga, your host for today. And we're going to dive into the next segment here, boys, to be able to talk about the other semi-final matchup in the playoffs. That, of course, was being hosted at the Coliseum in LA, their home, of course, for this matchup, and will also be for the final coming up when the next segment. So make sure you stick around to hear that one. But more importantly, Utah versus LA at home for LA with a final scoreline of 17-13. Another close matchup, especially when you consider how close it was even the week before these two battled it out on the home turf for the Warriors back in Utah. But we're going to hand it around the table one more time. This case, we're going to start with Scott Ferrara to hear his thoughts on this matchup between Utah and LA at home for LA with a final score of 17-13. Your thoughts, Scott?
So we're still cooking, and let's talk about another try that wasn't, which was the first LA try, as the offload to Johnny Ryberg was deemed offsides, going to TMO. We do have TMO in the playoffs, people. If you're surprised by that, I mean, we had it in 2019. We were going to have it in 2020 in the playoffs, and we're having it obviously now in 2021. But as the TMO looked at it, they called it back. So I found that one interesting. And actually TMO was using the Rooney ATL match for something else, but just to point that out there. But yeah, I think this is the match you wanted from Utah and LA. This is the match, the same style of match you're looking for. I think LA finally ground out that win. Most teams have ground LA down to a stop, and LA didn't know how to respond. And this was the statement game LA needed to say, we can actually grind it back out with you. Rooney was the 2-point win. They slowed him down. ATL was the next one. They slowed him down. Nola was the next one. All those East, and Utah plays, I guess what we can call now an MLR East Coast style of play where they can grind you down with all their big men. And they did just that. And, and this time it was LA coming away with the last minute try to win and not Utah, which I found interesting and a little bit ironic, because Utah has been kind of the heart attack kids the entire MLR season. But honestly, it was another back and forth on the edge of your seat. What's going to happen? Who's going to break through? Is there going to be a breakthrough? And I got to be honest, a lot of people, again, talking crap about, Mikey Teo missed that last tackle, to lose the match. God forbid the guy misses a tackle once in a while. I don't understand. How many tackles did he make in a match? Okay, so he missed that one. There's people complaining about it, and I just, you go play. You go play in the MLR semifinal. Let's see how well you do. But Ty.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are also throwing a bit of shade over on Teo because of his performances in the USA matchups where he received a little bit of criticism for defense. Although, again, you can't pick apart one player because of one moment. There's another 14 guys that are by his shoulder. So everything that led up to that, it's not just one pivotal moment that changed this game. There was some amazing play when you look at the opposite side, I mean, Ryan James, amazing talent, right? So he's steadily grown. I mean, I'm very happy to be able to see this guy from when I first discovered him back at the Raptors. He hardly got any game time in the 2020 season. I mean, there was only 5 games, but you knew he had the speed. He just needed to bulk up a little bit. He did that. He's got this wonderful sort of 7 style play with him, the way he holds the ball and manages to move inside. That last little tuck inside, that last try, which was like what, the 76th minute is what I have recorded over here. That was the final try to be able to put the nail in the coffin for the win for LA. And it was a step inside that was almost Cheslin Colby-esque, tucked on the inside, caught him off on the foot. Momentum carried him through, and he had the line right open. So it was still an exciting matchup, as you said, very much so. Let's get some further thoughts from Cam.
Yeah, I was a little interested by the Utah attacking strategy going into the match. I thought, they do much of the same from the week before. They put up plenty of points. It was a different LA team, but definitely a lot of points on a very good defensive team. I was surprised to see, and this might have just been LA tightening things up, and it really seemed like they wanted to play within the forwards. But, their MO all season long has been push it to the fringes, let Josh Whippy, Mika Cruz, and Mike Teo, just be the guys that they are, just be these dynamic forces. And it seemed like they just wanted to keep it, don't get it too close to the sideline. Just don't do anything, as you put it, don't do anything too flamboyant. And it almost seemed offensively they were playing not to lose the match. And I really think that they suffered by not sort of manufacturing some more touches for Mike Teo, and especially Mika Cruz. I think he's electric once he gets the ball, on the fringe. But, they tighten up even a few mistakes from last week defensively. And I thought they played, maybe next to New York in their regular season matchup. I think this is the best defensive matchup against LA I've seen all year. On the other side, LA, I'm interested to see how they recover with their lineout. Missing Adam Ash due to injury and Cottrell due to suspension. I believe this is his last game on suspension. But, you really saw it in their set piece and their lineout that, their timing was very much off. And I think Vailanu coming back and only having a few matches back also played a part in that. So it'll be interesting to see where they can recover there. In general, I thought Utah played the better match, and I thought they were more deserving. But, LA, you can look at the body, the whole body of work and say, look what they've done all season. They're deservedly, in the championship for a reason.
Everybody when looking at LA in the first half of the season was throwing out comments like, oh, are they unstoppable? Are they the unbeatable? And then you look at the second half where teams finally managed to be able to figure out if you just slow the ball down, you become a nuisance at the breakdown area. You're going to restrict that quick ball. Although I will add, Goddard is particularly dangerous around the scrums. But I felt as if it didn't have the same power that it had of the first half of the season, that they it's not that they lost it. It's just that teams find it a little bit more predictable. They've had time to be able to coach ways to be able to defend it. And on that note of defense, you made a note there, Cam, that you felt that Utah gave a great defensive display in this last matchup against LA, which for me is almost the opposite of what I've seen from them in the past. I felt they've all been offense. It's all been high-scoring matches, and they managed to be able to bring it across the line right at the end. So I was happy to be able to see that type of play from them today. But as you said, it might have been unfortunately that they sacrificed that normal play in attack that they became famous for, getting the ball out wide, using those key players that have been successful. They just kind of, I think the wording you used was they were trying not to lose the game. So it was a different psyche in the offense. that maybe they were just focused on keeping the LA attack at bay and forgot to be able to focus on their own attack as they had done in the past, and it didn't quite connect as it had in the past for them. So let's hand it over to Walker to hear your thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I reciprocate a lot of the same. I thought Utah offensively played not to lose, like Cam mentioned. Separately on LA's side, I thought Harrison Goddard had a heck of a game. He contributed directly to at least two of, I think both of the tries, or they had three, right? So he connected with two of the three, I believe, with Ryan James. He's my man of the match. I thought he managed the game quite well. I think we found the formula, not necessarily to beat LA, but to be competitive with them. If you can weather the storm the first 15, 20 minutes and then go on to, play a methodical approach. In Utah, I think they played out of their style, obviously, but they wanted to be that high flying. While you be that high flying offense, you leave yourself pretty susceptible defensively. So I think they tried to reel themselves back in. And I think subconsciously they created an environment where they were playing not to lose. Granted, I sort of expected a lower scoring game this match because they had just played each other. There's a level of familiarity. You were missing a couple of dynamic players, especially in the forwards for LA. I think JP Smith had an injury early on. It just wasn't the LA pack that we know. Obviously, no Cottrell, but for all intents and purposes, it was a great match. I thought that there was more dynamic play from both teams in this game versus the Eastern Conference game. And while Cam thinks Utah was the more deserved team, I think LA did what they needed to do to win, and it was close. I think this one was a much more competitive game than, and I mean that by just how dynamic the play was. But I thought it was a prettier game to watch, and I thought LA did what they needed to do to win, and they adhered to a style that not only similarly would slow down Utah's attack and give them opportunities to be clinical and find ways to win.
Right. And finding ways to win is what defines the playoffs, right? That knockout rugby format is so exciting because you can throw all the previous history out the window, all the record from the season, and it becomes on the merit of that game on that day. And we could see that this was polar opposites from the gameplay from the week before, where we had the same two teams matched up against each other. Now, we always knew that didn't really mean much, but was it going to give you an insight as to what this week's game was going to be? I didn't think so. We debated this last week, but what I believe some of the takeaways that LA will have and should take away from this win is, even though they did enough, will it be enough for the next one, right? Because their attack was ineffective in comparison to what they had done in the past. The first try was scored, the first point scored really, was in the 34th minute by Adam Ashley Cooper. That put them 7 up. Then the next 20 minutes was actually dominated by Utah. You have a penalty conversion on the 40th, the same on the 48th minute. This put them only 1 point behind. Then you see on the 58th minute, it happens to be a try in favor of Utah that they actually end up taking the lead. So does LA have something to be worried about? To what can they learn from this? Before we dive into that, because we'll be talking about that more in our MLR Championship preview that we'll be talking about in just a moment in the next debate. What we're going to do now, take one more time around the table to get your score, what you give these teams on their performance out of 10. And we started where we started this round with Scott Ferrara.
I think I give LA a 8 out of 10. I think they played a little more dynamically. I think, if that first try is upheld, if that ball's a little farther back or there's no TMO to call it back, now you're talking about LA taking off, in the first 10 minutes like they normally do. So maybe that changes the dynamic a little bit. And I'd give Utah a 6 because their play hasn't normally been kick for points, recently. Their play has been, let's open it up and run it down your throat. And that's what had led to their comebacks in these high scoring matches. And they fell away from that. And I think this was the wrong time to do that. So I'll give them a 6.
Right. So your criticism is, why did you change your game plan? It was working for you, right? So now instead they played a little bit more cautiously. They changed the game. The characteristic that we come to love about the comeback kids was missing, perhaps, right?
Yeah, you missed that, that synergy you have where you're moving and flowing in the back line like they were. Their counterattacks on kicks seem to be a little more hesitant. I don't know why, with a guy like Mikey Tail back there who loves to run it forward, he just seemed on that first couple steps to maybe look a little more and react a little less on the 2 steps. And usually his first 2 steps with that burst of speed is what's making that first or second cut to get him through. So I wonder if there was just a hesitation overall because of the game plan they were trying to play.
Could be. Let's hear the thoughts from Cam.
I would give LA an 8.2. I thought they played a quality game. Not quite a 9. I would have liked to see the line out cleaned up, and that also that set piece play off that line out is what's more so. It's just so dynamic. I hope to see that cleaned up a little bit, but I would give Utah an 8. Honestly, I think we talked off camera, and everybody's giving Mike Teo a hard time about him missing that tackle. Really, where I thought they lost the game is taking Hagen Schulte off the field, I think around the 60 or 65th minute. He and Teo were killing them with their territory kicks multiple times down, putting them underneath the 5 meter on the fringes. And I think that's how their one try came, was an LA miscue on a line out, get the ball back and punch it in. And it looked like right around the 55th to 65th minute that if they could have kept that up for the rest of the game, they'd have really had, LA on their back foot. But subbing Schulte out, I think really it kind of made a one-man kicking game with Teo, and the back 3 of LA keyed in on them. They knew where their kicks were coming from. And I think that's really where they, the ageless debate of bringing in fresh legs or keeping somebody in, but I thought keeping his boot in would have suited them better.
Right. And that change was made when they were up. So their mindset might have been a little different. But you're right. At that, so the try was scored in the 58th minute by Malolo. The points there up until there were scored all through kicking. So you have a traditional strength. You have something that's working. Do you make that judgment call about fresh legs, as you said, or do you stick with what's working, right? They made the call. I don't know if that necessarily changed the pathway of the rest of the game, but it certainly did make a difference. And I want to rewind to something that I wanted to revisit that you said about the lineouts. And I didn't give you credit for it when you first mentioned it, but the lineouts, we have to be able to talk about LA's lack of performance in this area, almost in contradiction to what you've seen from them in the past. It was poor in comparison. And we all know that if you don't win your own lineouts, or if it isn't clean ball, it's not going to be great distribution to your backs. They're going to be off center. They're going to be off footing, and it's just going to seem disjointed. So this is perhaps why we didn't get to see that normal, wonderful open play that we enjoy from a team like LA? Or is it the fact that we saw a great defensive effort and the interference from Utah that disrupted LA? So it depends on which way you view it. But let's hear from Walker how he views it.
I'm a little more critical. I think I've come to establish that with you guys. I'll give LA a 7.9. I think that again, I not to be a broken record, but they found a way to win at the end. To both of your guys' points, and Ty, you stole my thunder a little bit, but I was really underwhelmed by their play off of the lineouts. That is, I think they were by and large the number one team scoring off of set pieces, specifically lineouts. I think both teams did a very, very good job of neutralizing each other's star power. You really didn't see a ton from Adam Ashley Cooper, a ton from DTH Van der Merwe. Guito was good, not great. And then separately, Teo, aside from his tackle, you look at his body of work, he's been great all season. I think we talked about it. There was more kicking. Their kicking was dynamic and put LA on the back foot in that second half, but I wish they would have taken just a little bit more ball in hand. And their counterattacking is what, granted, they're the cardiac cats and they give us just panic attacks every single week. They have that ability to be one step, two step, gone, breaking a line. And if they're not breaking that, they're getting, if they're not breaking it on the first line break, the defense is on their back foot. They're resetting. They have overloads, and they're going the opposite way because Mike Cruze's over there or Whippy's over there. And I thought they both really deviated from their identity. And I got to believe playoffs is not the time to do that. So I will give Utah a 7.3. which I think is a little bit more generous than Scott, a little bit less generous than Cam. But I wasn't impressed by either team deviating from their play because they have been so dynamic on offense. And that's what I was really hoping for. In all irony, the forward in me was really hoping for a lot of dynamic play, big tries, and we didn't really see that, which I guess hindsight, I'm not surprised because they had just played each other. There was a lot of familiarity. And I think both teams played very cautiously first half.
Right. And, the brand of rugby we've come to love from both LA and Utah was not the game that we saw. And I think we could all agree on that point. And for those fans at home, they may very well agree with us. And if you do, or if you don't, if you disagree, let us know as well. You can drop a comment down below when you're viewing this episode on our social media at the handle. I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. Under the handle at the Rugby Rant Pod. And you can see us live each and every week with a run, pass, or kick interview with a new rugby insider. This past week, we interviewed Heineke Meyer, who is the former Springbok rugby coach, Stade Francais. The list goes on, the Bulls. Really great insight into how he may impact that franchise in Houston, put them back into a winning format in the coming season. So make sure that you check out all of those Run, Pass, or Kick interviews every Monday night at 8 p.m. under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod. You can continue to be able to enjoy this content every week, every Friday on the Rugby Network, and where we will have a new episode like this one. But before we take the opportunity to be able to head out into our next segment, where we're going to be able to dissect what we think about that matchup upcoming, that is the MLR Championship Final between LA and, of course, why am I drawing blank now? Rugby Atlanta. Of course, I'm wearing it. So let's take a quick break as we share a few thoughts from one of our new and most recent sponsors who are helping us to be able to help grow rugby one fan at a time here on the Rugby Rant Podcast Show. Yeah, I just drew a blank there. I was like, what the fuck? Great timing, Ty.
I will say that they're one of the teams, Rooney's sort of in the same breath where they get like everybody has a different name from them. Some people like refer to them as the Rattlers. Some are like Atlanta Rugby ATL or ATL. You do hear a lot of names for them.
It's just like as your identity is still evolving, and like the Rattlers thing is the most recent, right? And I guess some people did call it that, but not enough. They just kind of needed to have an identity, and they latched onto that. But it's nice that organically these things are coming about.
Yeah, well, Rooney, I know, is trying to get away from Rooney and the Rooster Boosters and the Rooster and the whole thing. So they've already told me that multiple times. Yeah, because they're like, well, we don't understand what that has to do with New York. And I said, well, get the fuck out of New York City, because anything north of where I live next to a fucking farm with cows and chickens. I'm 90 minutes away from Midtown Manhattan. It's like, what? Like, get the fuck out of New York City, And that's the only thing that I don't like about the new ownership. That when Kennedy owned it, he had the fourth. That's why he was doing things in Buffalo and trying to do things in Albany and try and just get out of the 5 boroughs and make it a New York State team, not just a fucking city team. And, some of these New Zealand guys just don't get it,
Well, because they don't understand the identity. And also in New Zealand, geographically, the cities are so close together. that, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, New Zealand's got a different way of doing things, but New York is also just very unique. But
New York.
I agree with you. You should try and pull in from everywhere. Like New England has done a great job.
Well, and that's the other thing is like the whole Rooster thing and the Rooster Wars, that all came organically. And I think new teams would kill to have that done. Like there's a story behind it. And when you tell people, why are they called the Roosters? Well, when they were in the original jerseys, Luke Hume was like, oh man, with this orange, we look like roosters. And then it went from, well, what do we call supporters who go after? It was Rooster Boosters. And this whole, like, it's,
Yeah, I don't think any team does enough to be able to embrace the fan culture around their teams, to include them, to help make them contributors.
Maybe because the Giltinis have now the Giltikis, and they show up in like the robe with the fucking champagne glass, and like they party.
Yeah. Giltikis. That's one. Remember, we were throwing out names like the Gil Suarez and I can't even remember what it was. The Giltikis. Okay, that's what won it. Okay.
Yeah. So they're kind of doing it, but yeah, everybody else. And I'm like, just embrace the fucking Rooster, man. I mean, we all love it. It's
right. Okay, let's dive into this next Can I Brands advert. And Scott, so I'm going to swing it to you. So we're going to try and make this conversational, okay?
Mm-hmm. Well, am I supposed to hit any of the points that you gave us last time?
Yeah, same points. I mean, just work them in any way you want.
Yeah.
They don't want it scripted. They want it natural.
Yeah.
So I'll just do the introduction and say that I'm trying this one, which is the Boost. Does this one got the caffeine, right?
Yes, that has a little bit of caffeine in it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Hey, rugby fans. Here at the Rugby Rant, it's important to be able to acknowledge those that help us do what we do each and every week to be able to help grow rugby one fan at a time. And we wanted to be able to share our newest partner, which is Can I Brands. They are one of the great CBD plant-based products that will help you mend, recover, refresh, vitalize. The one that I have been using most often is the Can I Boost. I don't know if you can really see that there, but this has got a little bit of a caffeine boost to it, so it really does exactly as it says. Those days where you're dragging, I mean, we're recording until late in the evening, so 8 drops of these under the tongue before I start gets us through a 3-hour-long podcast.
Absolutely. And on the end of the spectrum, it was funny. I was off camera. I was telling Ty about this day I had last week where I was out for about 14 hours with work, and I came home and I just wanted to chill. And I used the Can I Fresh little spray, and it comes in this little spray bottle and just a few sprays in the mouth, and it kind of just got me mellowed and got me off that. I was on that high wire from working hard all day. And the reason I like Can I Brands in particular is because of the it's a safe alternative to like opioids and habit forming prescription drugs you might have in context of like pain management or sleep or anxiety. Can I Brands products are safe, trusted, lab tested, all natural and non-habit forming, and also have no THC in their formula. So we're not where you could pass all your drug screenings and all that. And the other one that I use is actually the Can I Sleep. Sometimes me and my wife have different schedules, and sometimes who's going to bed at what time, and then 2 hours later your spouse is going to bed. And using the Can I Sleep has helped me on those days to kind of get me through those changes in schedule that we have. And I know some of the Free Jacks guys are using this too, right, Ty?
Yeah, I mean, that's the really cool thing, though. So there's 4 different lines that you've got, which is one of them is the Can I Mend, which is being more often used by athletes across America. So you've got guys from the Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL, all the key marquee sports for the U.S., but for rugby players, what a perfect fit. And how we were actually introduced to canibrands.com is through Free Jacks, who mentioned, hey, by the way, if you're getting into using podcasts with rugby, check out the Rugby Rant. So we actually have someone to thank on that side. I'm not sure who, but those boys are using it. And I can see why, because it's pretty easy to be able to use, either a drop under the tongue, 8 of them, or an oral spray. So 8 pumps of the spray and you're good to go. And as you said before, whether it be sleep or whether it be to revitalize and refresh or to give you a kick for the rest of the day ahead with the Boost. It's got a little bit of something for everybody, and it's non-habit forming, easy to be able to use, and using it right now with the Rant promo. as an introduction, canibrands.com. Go and check them out. Their online store, anything you want, is going to be 25% off your total order package, not just one item, but everything in your basket. So load as much as you can. And when you do, when your total order is over $49, you'll get free shipping anywhere in the continental US, plus that additional 25% off your total order by using the promo code RANT25. That's, I should probably say it the correct way. How's an American say? I would say rant. Is it rant?
What are we talking about here?
Get your rant on, So rant25. Get 25% off canibrands.com. Go and check them out. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to share that. But let's dive back into some rugby. So stick around, because next up, we've got LA matchup against Rugby Atlanta in the championship, and our thoughts will be up next. Okay. Thanks for enduring that, guys.
I kind of want to try it now. So you guys did well.
Yeah.
Go
and try it, dude. Honestly, I have tried the boost one, and I have not the sleep one. So I got a little baby in the house, so I got to be sharp when I wake up. And I should have taken it out, but it's just a dropper like that. And or the spray is even better. It's got a little bit of like a peppery aftertaste, as you would imagine, being a CBD product. I don't know if you've ever tried any CBD products, but there's a balm as well. They're pretty good, man.
Yeah.
And they're reasonably priced.
I've tried anything from THC, the Delta 8 THC. There's a company over in Indiana called 3Chi.
I've heard of that one, yeah.
Yeah, I've tried CBD products, and I like them all for different reasons. I can't necessarily use THC before I go to work. I could.
I've
you could, but it might not be advisable.
Grass.
I work for a drug and alcohol rehab, so I definitely can't use that.
Probably
conflict
not
of
good
interest.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's good. And like I said, they have the sprays instead of the drops, and then also on the men they have a cream or a balm. And honestly, I hurt my ankle. I used the balm. I was like, oh, that kind of, I felt a little better. I gave it to my mother. My mother has really bad arthritis, and she loves the friggin' balm. So check it out. Use RANT25. Get that 25% off.
It's the balm.
You got it.
Yeah, it's the balm.
RANT25. Help us keep the lights on, as Scott often says. Let's dive into the last piece, guys. We need a solid 15 minutes on this one. So short, punchy responses. This is the most exciting part. People would have been waiting 40 minutes to be able to get to this part. So let's give it some throw some sauce on it, as one of my old bosses used to say. Yeah, get loose, get limber. Let's get a fight going. All right. So
what you asked for.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just dive into it. Where's my notes that I had? Yeah, there we go. All right. Hey, rugby fans, again, we are here to be able to talk about that championship final. It is here on August 1st. Who thought we would have been here at the beginning of the season? We were still fighting the COVID pandemic. The looming pressure of it forced the season to be able to start later than expected. George Killebrew came on the show saying, hey, it would be a success tie if we just finished the season. Not only have we done that, it is now the most exciting season to date. There's a new team that is up for the honors with an expansion team making the final for the first time. We've got Rugby ATL making the final for the first time. It's exciting to be able to see their two different styles of play out there in LA, where it'll be a home match for them at the Coliseum Stadium. Couldn't think of a better stadium to be able to have it shown on CBS Sports across the nation. I only hope that it would come to be able to surpass the viewing record set in 2019 at Torero Stadium, where I believe it was just north of 500,000 active viewers for that matchup. Should it meet that again, it would already be a phenomenal success, but we're expecting even greater things. But what we need to be able to dive into here, gentlemen, with our panel of guests here, our ranters are ready to be able to give us their predictions, their preview of this matchup, August 1st, the Sunday final for the championship of the MLR 2021. We're going to hand it over to Walker Tice to be able to run us through his thoughts.
I'm starting to fire over here. No, I think it is going to be a match of two different styles, like you pointed out. LA high flying. I think they get back to that. ATL, they win or lose it in the first 20. If LA can get out on the front foot, if they can get out, get set pieces going, fix their lineouts. Adam Ash should be back. Hopefully, Cottrell should be back. They've got lineout threats. Most importantly, I'm really curious to see if the back line of ATL can neutralize the star power of LA. I mean, they threw the back line, whether it's Billy Meeks and Adam Ashley Cooper in the centers, DTH Vandermerve in the wing, Ryberg on the wing. And then we missed their fullback. Remiss of his name, but Bryce. They have the star power to put up a 50 burger, and can LA weather the storm the first 15-20 minutes, and what do they do in the first 20? Can they get out on the front foot, put LA on their back heels, and what does that look like? I would expect to see Skura hopefully back into the centers. I thought Coleman coming in at 10 and Skura moving to the 12 really made them more dynamic in their back line. And from there, can your forwards match the physicality of LA?
Right. So you're saying you got to come out right from the gates, ready to attack and put them on the back foot. And that's the key. I mean, this is almost what we saw. We just covered a moment ago with Utah, is that LA didn't put any points on the board until the 34th minute, and they were under pressure. And that's where you got to put them early on, kind of break that rhythm early, as you're saying, going to be one of the best strategies for Rugby ATL, who does have the ability to be great on defense. A couple of changes here and there. I mean, they've been experimenting with the lineup a little bit more than I would think is what you should be doing in the latter part of the season. You would think that your combinations are pretty good. I know there's things that have changed, and you think about each game and it's on its face value, but you haven't given us the prediction.
I was building
suspense.
Yeah, building suspense here. I will go with a LA victory, 26-17.
26-17. So you think it's going to be still not a very high scoring game, but certainly exciting rugby with a few tries on either side. So hopefully you are right. And hopefully it's not a scoreline of 3-6 or something like that, right? That wouldn't be great for a national TV broadcast of the final. So let's hope that it's the same exciting brand of rugby we've come to love. Let's hand it over to Cam.
Yeah, sort of similar to some of the points Walker made. I really hope that both teams can get back to their bread and butter from the lineout. For LA, it's their set piece, dropping the ball down to Mahi Vailanu, where he kicks it out to Giteau or to Goddard, and then, let the backs go to work. I think they probably have the most dynamic back line from the set piece. I would love to know the average count of hands touched before they actually go into the next phase, because it's got to be like 5 or 6 guys. And you just don't see that anywhere else. It looks like super rugby out there. For ATL, it's going to be, can they get back to that rolling maul and, stay on brand with their physicality? I actually think offensively they play a pretty similar style, where they really try and use quick ball to put the pressure on the opposition. But basically what it boils down to is a difference of philosophy, I think. Atlanta is through and through. They want to out physical whoever they play, whether it's defensively or offensively. They want to be the more physical, wear teams down because of their pace, not necessarily slow it down style. LA, you see people, their heads are spinning. They're seeing so many people touch the ball, and they've got such dynamic play, front to back, even from their forwards. I can't get enough of Mahi Vailanu, because it looks like a 10 trapped in a 2's body. And but I've got a bit of a bold prediction. I'm going 25-22 Atlanta. I think LA, as great as they've been, I think the league has caught up to them, and I think they're kind of they're just not hitting on all cylinders. Where I think Atlanta, even though they had, they kind of played to the style of New York last week, I think they're more so the team that's, really found their form towards the end of the season and have carried that through, maybe the final third of the season. And you'll see it in the championship on Sunday.
Right. So let me ask you, do you think it's a case that LA peaked too early, or at least they were just exciting and now everybody you say has caught up to them, but Rugby ATL is now on that rise and peaking and has peaked at the right time in the season? Is that what you think it is?
I think I don't think it's, I don't want to discredit LA for peaking too early. I think it's the league catching up. I think having that camp out in Maui for a month, most teams were meeting in small groups still. I think
that's true.
If meeting at all, I think for the
no one really had a preseason.
Yeah. There were front rows who were meeting together, and the second row and back row were meeting together, but you never really got a chance to get together and put it all together maybe a week before the season started. And so that bubble that they did, they're fortunate to be able to do that. I think that really separated, and it, you saw LA's star power, and I think people may have confused their star power or that head start for there being just, a dominant roster. While they do have a dominant roster, I think, if you look at USA basketball team, talent's not everything. You got to play together. And,
that's so true. I mean, you can have all the right pieces, but if they don't fit together, and there's no, for lack of a better term, that teamwork there, it's not all going to work together. I mean, it's a team sport for a reason. Yes, star power is great, and the individualism does shine in certain great moments. But together, a wonderful team can upset the odds, right? One of the key things that I wanted to bring attention to is some of the stats that is backing this matchup between these two giants of MLR right now. So interestingly, I brought it up earlier. You're looking at the number 2 and number 3 best defensive teams through the regular season. That's, of course, the 16 rounds. In addition to that, I want to run through a couple of other stats here that I think will be interesting, give a little bit of fuel for the conversation. LA has 83 tries to Rugby ATL's 59. So they certainly beat them in that corner there on offense, just on the stats alone. Line breaks is 106 compared to ATL's 86. So again, but now here's where it starts to shift in the favor of ATL. Tackles broken, 349 in comparison to 329 from LA. So they're certainly higher in that regard. This is over the length of the season. Turnover tackles, 71 to 56 for LA. Turnovers won, 95 to 79 for LA. So you can see in these 3 key points is where, for me, they're going to win the game if they are going to, is at the breakdown and the turnovers to disrupt the regular play that LA obviously does need to be able to get it through the hands and let the star power shine, right? So I don't want to dig too much further into that because Scott Ferrara has to have his turn.
Yeah, first of all, Walker trying to say, use my line, let's get hot. I'll tell you, the name you were looking for was Luke Burton, by the way, the fullback for LA. I also think Adam Ashe, I have a feeling he doesn't play in this upcoming match, believe it or not. I think he's still that injured that he doesn't play, but Cottrell is back, I believe, from the suspension. And kind of to refute what Ty just said there, I think LA doesn't have as many, it isn't as high in those last 3 categories because they play with the ball in hand so much, their possessions there so much. So obviously they're not going to have that many to go. They're not going to be able to go after that many turnovers. As far as breaking tackles, well, the way they've been playing, especially in the first half of the season, they were creating such open channels from that synergy that Cam was talking about from that camp. If they're open and doing a line break, there's no tackle to be broken. So I think those stats are a little bit misleading. But going to the actual game, I think for LA, it's attitude time. ATL beat them in ATL, but NOLA came in and beat you at home with an under-deserving squad. right? They had 9 guys out of that squad. ATL can't afford to lose another meaningful game, or excuse me, LA can't afford to lose another meaningful game at home. And in that locker room, if that's not what's being said by the leaders in that locker room, then that culture has it all wrong. LA should be wanting to put the smackdown on ATL and cap the season off with a mind-blowing win. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's the attitude that they got to show. That's the swag they got to come out with to beat ATL. On the ATL side, I got one word: Cowboy, baby. Are we going to see Mark O'Keefe coming in and doing some stuff as the Cowboy? He's nicknamed the Cowboy because he's a horse and that dude can run, right? He gets the ball, he can break a couple tackles, and once he hits an open area, he's off to the races. We didn't see that against Rooney. That wasn't part of the game plan. Unsure, against Rooney, he was kind of ineffective. I know he scored once late, and I think in the first match, which really didn't change anything because Rooney still won the match. But maybe that was just part of their game plan. Ineffective against one team in one style, but we're going to be playing a more open style team. Let's open it up and kind of match them. I think both the guys said, it's the first 10 to 20 minutes that's going to be most important, and I agree with that. As far as a prediction, I'm gonna say LA by 5.
LA by 5. Do you want to go at like Cam and Walker did? Is give us a number?
I don't do the total. I just do differential. I'm doing LA minus 5.
All right. Okay. So remind me again. It was all 3 saying that it was going to be an LA victory.
I had Atlanta 25-22.
That's right. Yeah. 3-point. I mean, you still think it's going to be close, Scott? You think it's going to be fairly close? I mean, it's going to be exciting rugby nevertheless, right? Because both these teams deserve to be where they are, and of course have fought hard. And again, it's been a wonderful season to be able to look back from where we started. We touched on it very briefly, but there was almost no preseason whatsoever. I mean, there were games that were scheduled and canceled, then into a squad scrimmages. We're replacing that. At one point, we didn't know if we were going to start on time. So where we stand today is an amazing journey that the Rugby 2021 season for MLR will certainly be a feather in the cap for the league, as it hopefully will crown, it will crown a franchise for the first time. Won't be the Seawolves, right? So, because that's all it's been up until now.
Yeah, somebody's going to try and have to lift that 8,000-pound shield over their head and not crack their head open.
Right. I do wish that there was a cup and instead of a shield, but that's another debate for another day. Cam and Walker, what we like to be able to do before we crown our winner for this round is to be able to give both of you boys an opportunity to send a shout out to somebody important, a message to somebody out there, or just share your thoughts. The floor is yours. We'll start with Cam.
Shout out. I guess shout out to our old podcast buddy, TJ. Hope things are going out well in LA. I know he's running their academy right now, so I'm sure he's just booming about the championship coming home to him. And hopefully my prediction doesn't bum him out too much.
It'll be the result that either elates him or bums him out, not your prediction.
Right, that's fair.
So Walker, your thoughts?
My shout out goes actually to my brother. Congratulations on getting married. He now has a better half.
Congrats, man.
No, I'm excited for it. It's great to have championship rugby back. We went a full, almost what feels like close to 2 years without it. And we're back. We're back, baby. Whatever happens, I hope there's a lot of points scored. I hope there's some big hits, and let's see an open field kick. I want to see a drop goal.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. Who knows? I mean, if it's going to be a 3-point difference, as Cam predicts, it might be that winning. That always makes for an exciting finish. I mean, I think some of the most iconic matchups in rugby history have always been settled by a moment of glory like that. And it's no different for the MLR in the past too. So hopefully we see more of that magical rugby brand that is so uniquely North American, and it'll be high-paced, fast rugby, high scoring action, and will be out in the LA Coliseum, which is, I can't think of a better home to be able to broadcast this matchup, as it is shared across the nation through CBS Sports and, of course, with our partners up north on TSN, I believe. They can also get it on the Rugby Network, where you can also tune in to watch us each and every week. Like this, we will be doing another one every Friday, shared on the Rugby Network under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod. You can find us online through our social media accounts, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok under the handle at Rugby Rant Pod. And before we head out, we need to be able to also remind our viewers that what we do here is our mission on the Rugby Rant to help grow rugby one fan at a time. We have another partner who certainly is doing their part to be able to help grow rugby, but in particular, that be Youth Rugby with Rugby Coffee. This ethically sourced brand is brought to you by these people who have now, just for the first time, released their North American blends. There are 2 available, which is the Jouet Jouet. It is a French roast blend, a little bit darker, very nice. I like that, by the way. I always drink an espresso, so I'm used to a kind of a darker roast.
Jouet Jouet package. I think there's a familiar little thing on that Jouet Jouet. Oh, look at that.
Oh, Rooster, because it's French. But anyways, we move on. We digress. Thanks for that. A medium roast of the year with the crowd favorite. These guys, if you don't know, go and check out Rugby Coffee. The thing that I love most about it is that with every cup you get to enjoy, you're also giving back to rugby as a piece of their proceeds. I believe it's as much as 10% of their yearly turnover is given back to youth rugby programs in both the UK, Canada, and they're choosing their US partner shortly. So why do you need a better reason to be able to grab a cup of Joe, right?
Absolutely. And it comes quick. It really does. I ordered I ordered on Tuesday and it came on Saturday, and I'm all the way on the East Coast, and I know these guys are closer to the West Coast. So
right. So let me tell you. So yes, we're sponsored by these guys, and they are very kind enough to be able to share this with us. Their brand new blend for North America. But Scott was so impatient, he went and bought his.
I need the coffee, man. I need the coffee.
just need it, man. Just need it.
Motor oil for the machine, baby.
Exactly.
Right. But yeah, there's a cool travel mug that comes with it. I think Scott showed it. I mean, really, it's such a blessing to be able to work with people that are so passionate about rugby. I mean, their catchphrase is, it's not just a game, it's a way of life. And it certainly is for everybody, I'm sure, here on the show, for everybody who supports the show, and for perhaps some of you fans at home. So make sure that you let us know what you think about this show or any other topic we've chosen to speak about by dropping a comment down below. We'll make sure that we get to be able to cover it and respond to it as quickly as we can. If you agree with us, that's fine. If you disagree with us, you can watch another show. But more importantly, it's all about rugby. And as I said, here on the Rugby Rant, we aim to grow rugby one fan at a time. And we want to be able to give a thanks to Cam and Walker Tice for joining us here in the absence of Rob Hammerschmidt, who is on holiday with his family, a well-deserved break. And of course, thanks to Scott Ferrara. My name is Ty Braga. I've been your host for today's opportunity. Oh, I'm forgetting something, aren't I?
Yeah. Who's the
winner?
Who's the important part?
I am going to give it because I know who I'm giving it to. I'm just trying to figure out why I'm giving it to him. But I'm going to give it to Scott Ferrara because I think Cam and Walker, both very great competitors. But if I didn't give it to Scott, and when Rob wasn't here, it means they wouldn't have a challenge next week. But yeah, so Scott, you're the winner. Your thoughts? What do you think?
Continuity. It's all about continuity. The Hammer sucks. There's a reason he wasn't on this particular episode, because he was scared to face me, so he had to get the Tice Bros. Cam and Walker, thank you so much for coming on. Check out them at Rugby Index on all social media.
Absolutely. Once again, it has been another great opportunity to be able to share with you our thoughts here on this Rugby Debate Show. It is my pleasure to say thank you. And my name is Ty Braga, and we will see you at the next.
Hold on.